Dustin.
Mr. Thorogood, how you doing today?
I'm sneaking by.
Excellent. I got to say, it's an honor speaking with you.
So likewise, sir. You got, let's see, you got the state that gave us Academy Award-winning Jessica Lange.
Is that what we're known for in your neck of the woods?
You didn't know that?
This is Prince country here. I don't know if that does anything for you.
I'm just asking you, did you know that?
Yeah, I did know that.
Okay. So you also have Bob Dylan.
And I know we are going to have George Thorogood here pretty soon at the State Theater. Let's talk about the Rock Party tour. I know you guys have been on the road for a long time. What's in store for the audience this time around?
Well, more of the same, I hope. I hope that's why you're bringing us back to Minnesota, the land of lakes. We don't. We're not. When you go to see, when you go to see Mick Jagger or you go to see Rodney Dangerfield or Cheech and Chong, you know what you're going to get. Okay, that's what you pay the money for. So you'll get bad of the bone, get a haircut, things like that. But that's why you want us to come back, isn't it?
Yeah, absolutely. And I imagine with 40 plus years on the road, the makeup of the crowd, you must have everyone from grandfathers to little kids out there.
Well, people have taken better care of their health over the years, so they've lasted. And also, rock music in general, Dustin, has lasted through classic rock radio. Rock music now is like almost overtaking jazz as being the foremost musical statement on the planet. You got 70-year-olds and you got 7-year-olds all rocking out the Jumpin' Jack Flash, and that's pretty cool.
Well, I think it's cool also that the proceeds from the ticket sales are going out to help Leukemia and Lymphoma Society. Can you talk to us a bit about that and why you guys decided to donate?
Well, it was brought to me by people in our staff, plus a member of our family was struck with this, but luckily he was treated and cured and watching his health. So we thought, well, something should, we were thinking about doing something anyway. We thought that's as good as any. That kind of, if there's so much money in the world, so much cash floating around, it's beyond me that more and more cash can't be thrown into the pot to work on all these incurable diseases. It's mind-boggling to me. I say, we spend all this money on tanks and nuclear bombs to destroy lives, when was all this money going around the world that we could use to preserve lives? And it's a sad state of affairs when a rock band has to step up and say, "Okay, we'll sell some T-shirts and throw some money in, for the cause." Well, I'd say it's sad, but it seems kind of unusual to me.
Yeah, definitely. It's great that you guys are doing that. And again, you're going to be at the State Theater in Minneapolis on March 26th. And I got to ask you, George, I guess what led you to start playing, the blues style? Was there a lot of that up in the Delaware area when you were growing up?
No, there was a lot of that in the music area, period. The music that I grew up on was all connected to the blues. All the bands that started, even the Beatles did Little Richard, and they did Chuck Berry. They did songs by the Miracles. But every act that I saw when I was growing up, the Rolling Stones, the Animals, the Butterfield Blues Band, the John Hammond, Yardbirds, Animals, I could go on and on. They all started as blues bands. Steppenwolf, Jay Giles, Led Zeppelin, they all had blues roots. So it was a very natural thing for me to say, well, this is what I'm going to get into, because this is what these people listen to. I mean, that's how Jeff Beck became the guitarist he is, by listening to Howlin' Wolf. And Keith Richards became who he is by listening to Bo Diddley and Chuck Berry. And they became who they were by listening to Muddy Waters. So it wasn't a Delaware thing. No, not at all.
Well, I know around the time you guys were starting out, it was really a lot of disco and, punk rock, maybe new wave coming to the forefront. You guys really managed to, keep that bluesier style on the radio when a lot of other groups weren't doing it.
Well, that had nothing to do with me. They chose the songs to put them on our radio. We had no manager. We had no representation. We didn't even have an agent. We didn't have anybody. FM radio in San Francisco and Southern California, and AM radio in Colorado picked up on our music and started playing it, unbeknownst to us. That came as a very big shock and surprise to us. So it wasn't like we shoved it down their throats. No, they heard the record and they played it on their own.
Well, I got to ask you, with that being said, Can you talk a bit about the song "A Bad to the Bone"? I mean, that song is in movies, TV shows, sporting events. I mean, did you imagine when you guys were recording that it would wind up showing up everywhere over the years?
No, not at all. Nobody does that. Nobody thinks that when they're putting something together. Because, for one thing, when we did it, MTV was just getting started, and there was no classic rock radio at that time. So we actually wrote the song thinking about Muddy Waters. We wanted him to do it, but he passed on it, and we ended up doing it.
Well, yeah, I wanted to ask you about that as well, and bringing attention to a lot of the old blues guys that probably wouldn't get a lot of the the money or the exposure that they would have without you guys kind of going out there and flying the flag. I mean, that must have been important to get those guys out there for you.
Well, I don't know if I was really, I don't know if I was flying any flag, man. I was just trying to make a living.
Well, it does seem like a lot of those groups you mentioned, Led Zeppelin and the other groups that were influenced by them, really kind of took their styles maybe, but didn't kind of give them the credit they deserved. I mean, you guys were right out there up front with all that stuff.
I get tired of hearing that. How much more credit can you give somebody? The Rolling Stones brought Howlin' Wolf on Shindig. Every teenager in America and Canada were watching Shindig, and the Stones brought Howlin' Wolf on as a guest artist. And then in 1970, the greatest rock musicians in the world did an album with Howlin' Wolf. When the Stones would go on tour, they would always have someone like a B.B. King or John Lee Hooker or someone like that open for them. Those credits were right on the back of the record. How do you think I learned about these songs? I read the back of the record. It said, "Boom Boom" by the Animals, written by John Lee Hooker. They'd have a song like "Honest I Do," written by Jimmy Reed. Well, who's that guy? No, they gave him credit. I don't know where this came from that these other artists didn't give him credit and I was the only one. It just isn't true.
Well, do you think there's anybody that's out there nowadays in the mainstream that's kind of doing the same thing, keeping the blues alive?
Well, I'm sure there are. Joe Bonamassa is doing great, and there's many. Jimmy Vaughn. There's many people still doing it. And they always will. There'll always be a living making blues music.
Well, and I know you're working on a new solo album, and I was surprised that you hadn't had one out until now. I know you've had a lot of stuff over the years, but is it going to be much different from the stuff you do with the Destroyers, or what can we expect with the new one?
Yes, it'll be very different. The difference is there'll be no Destroyers on it.
Is that coming out later this year then, maybe?
Yeah, we're trying to get it out this year.
Awesome. Well, again, I know you're on the Rock Party Tour coming again to the State Theater in Minneapolis. Anything else in the works or anything else coming up?
Well, I'm just trying to, get up and get out of a horizontal position, strap on that guitar, and lay it on you Minnesota style.
Awesome. Again, it's an honor speaking with you. I'm looking forward to seeing you. Thanks a lot for being on with me today.
Bye-bye, Dustin.